Okay, PJNet.tv is on the air. It is 9 p.m. East Coast time, September 30th. You are watching The Bumper, and we're recording this, and we are streaming to Facebook, we're streaming to YouTube, and we are not streaming to Twitter for the time being. They've made some changes over there. We'll get that going soon enough. We have a first-time guest waiting in our green room, and we have a chat room waiting to hear from her. So, we will begin a countdown to Studio 20. Well, good evening and welcome to PJNet.tv. I'm your host, Coach Prasick. I'm a little rattled, folks. You probably, if you tune in every night, you know that we were forced to upgrade our studio software that makes all this possible. So I do not know what is about to happen because there are really strange things, because what's supposed to happen right now is I'm going to introduce our first-time guest. Her name is FitzGerald, and she's got quite a story to tell. Before we get started, keep J.D. Winninger in your prayers. He will not be with us tonight at 9:30 as he normally is. He is not feeling well, so please keep J.D. in your prayers. He is a beloved member of the PJNet.tv family, but Doug Carter has graciously agreed to fill in for him, and he has got a lot to say. I don't want... Kat FitzGerald joins us on the screen right there where she is supposed to be. This was not the case 10 minutes ago. It really wasn't. Okay, I'm going to put your name up here. I wonder where it's going to put it. Okay. Hey.
Probably on my forehead. There it is.
Yeah, right there. Kat, so glad that you could join us tonight. And how... I love having first-time guests, but I don't remember exactly how it is that we found each other.
I think it might have been, it was either through Eva Marie Everson or Star Ayers on Facebook.
Could be. Both of those are fine, upstanding women of Christ, and I really enjoy working with both of them. Your name has got a peculiar spelling. It's really not the spelling that's peculiar. It's the capitalization, but that is not a typographical error. It actually has the G in uppercase.
It is. It is. My husband's family, it has the capital G, but if you look back in the past and some letters that are from various people, some have the capital G and some have a little g. And there's no one around anymore to ask the question as to how that came about and which way it's supposed to be. But his father spelled it with a capital G, and so it's capital G. Sometimes people want to separate it and make it two names. I've had people file things for me actually under the letter G because they separated the Fitz and the Gerald. So.
Your middle name is not Fitz.
No, it's not. But however it gets spelled, whatever.
It's good. Kathy, tell us about yourself. We're going to talk about, you've actually got 2 books that are published. And we're going to have, one of them is behind me. We'll actually, I wonder where it's going to appear. Oh, according to this, it's going to appear at the correct place. But we have...
It's the right place for now.
Maybe I've just lost my mind, but... Anyway, we'll get to those in a moment. What did you do, or what do you do before and becoming a best-selling author? Amazon best whatever. But tell us about yourself.
I was actually born in North Carolina, but raised completely in South Carolina, and I've always written. I can remember writing poetry as far back as 2nd grade, and then probably junior high school before I settled into short stories. And I've started a few novels along the way, and then life got in the way, children, jobs, and that thing. But I always felt like I had a book inside that wanted to get out. And it wasn't until I joined a writer's group, I didn't even know there was such a thing until a friend of mine invited me to join a local writers group, and that gave me the encouragement and the accountability to really focus on it and get it done. And actually got, my first book was published in late 2018. Before that, I did a lot of, I did some articles for some local newspapers, and I've written for a couple of magazines in the Columbia area. I had a column in a little local newspaper here in Chapin for a while, but finally got that first book out in 2018, and then the second book came very easily. That one came out right before the pandemic last year, so getting that one pushed out there was a bit of a challenge, but things are opening back up again.
You managed to have one book signing before the whole world imploded?
Yes, before the world shut down, I had one book signing.
So is it challenging, sitting at home working from social? I guess you just have to work social media or Zoom. I mean, what do you do?
I did Zoom a book club. Our writers group was Zooming, which was horrible. I hated it. I think we all hated it. I did do. I spoke at a local book club later last year, and we all were in a restaurant, but we were in a back room. We all had our mask on until time to eat, and then we took our mask off, and then we ate, and then put our mask back on again. And I kind of pulled mine down a little bit so I could talk to the ladies and not sit too close to them. So you do what you got to do.
I pull mine down so I can breathe.
Yes.
And spit, but that's not.
I do not spit.
You do not. Okay.
I do not spit.
So you've been interested in writing all of your life, but you haven't done that professionally. Excuse me, you have been writing professionally, and was that your day job? Did that keep you busy? And
no, I was in the insurance industry. The first thing that I actually got published was a chapter in an instruction manual for the claims industry. I handled. I was a department manager at a large insurance company in Columbia, and I was asked to participate in the writing of a new instructional manual for claims representatives and claims adjusters. So I wrote a chapter on trauma.
Oh.
So that was my first published work.
Yeah, but people had to read that, did they? I mean, you didn't have to sell it.
They had to get licensed to handle claims. They had to read that book and memorize a good bit of it in order to pass their licensing exam. So who knows? I've contributed to the licensing of perhaps thousands of adjusters around the world.
Yeah. Not helping you a bit right now, though, is it?
No. Not at all. They've been replaced by computers these days anyway.
Did I read in your bio that you have a home where you have frequent visitors, even though you're far away from civilization?
We do. As a matter of fact, there was a scene from the Hitchcock movie The Birds in my front yard this afternoon. I was in the kitchen and I happened to glance out, and I yelled at my husband down the hallway. I said, "Look out the window." And there must have been 100 blackbirds in the front yard. And we often have a family of deer. There's a little herd of 5 that regularly show up out front. We have 2 crows that I've named Punch and Judy that have been here now for 2 years. I'm assuming it's the same couple because I did some research on them, and they mate for life. They do tend to stay in one location, and they have their babies, and their babies, I guess, go off and, do whatever. And but they stay around. And so Punch and Judy, we have had as many as 22 wild turkeys outside of our home at one time.
How do you getting work done? If I was able to sit on my, just see out the window, I would be compelled to get a cup of coffee and just take it in. My
computer, where I'm sitting right now, does not afford me an outside view unless I roll my chair backwards and look out the door. So I know that I cannot work with distractions. So now if I took my computer and went out to the sunroom, then I would get nothing done.
I see. Well,
So,
I have to control the lighting in this environment, but my wife insisted that we have some windows, and this is a barn actually. It's a barn, and
hmm
but I have a window right there in a little shade. I
hmm
can lift it up and see. Whoop! My hand disappeared. Arm cut off. Um, Before we talk about your books, tell us about your spiritual journey.
oh wow, I grew up in church, and I say that with little c. Um, I went to private kindergarten. It was Catholic because back in the day they didn't have public kindergarten. It was all private, and this was Catholic. So I had some friends. I kept going to the Catholic church until I was in sixth grade. And then junior high, I got a new best friend. She went to the Methodist church. So I started going to the Methodist church. And then a boy I started dating later in high school went to the Lutheran church. So then I started going to the Lutheran church and so on and so forth. So I had a lot of church experience. But once I got out of college, I didn't set foot in a church again for, I don't know, at least 5 years or so. Um, and then just went just sporadically. Um, Felt like it was something that I should do, but there was nothing there. And I was working and married, had a little girl, and by all accounts, I was living the American dream. I had a great job, great position, earning a great salary, lived in the right neighborhood, drove the right kind of car, shopped at the right stores. Just everything on the outside just looked terrific. And but on the inside, I was dead, Mark. I was just dead, and miserable. And I had some friends at work that invited me to attend the Billy Graham crusade that was going to be in Columbia in 1987. And at first I said no, and they wouldn't let up. They just kept inviting me, asking me. I mean, they were really good friends, but they were, a little Jesus freaky. So I was a little like, okay, y'all are getting carried away with all this stuff. They had bumper stickers on their cars, Billy Graham crusade. I'm like, wow, y'all are really into this stuff. And I finally said, okay, fine, I'll go. This was the second night of the 5-day crusade. And so I went this was held at the football stadium here in Columbia, where I was living at the time. Home of the Gamecocks. Yay.
Are you a
Had to
Gamecock
get that
fan?
in there. And I got to the stadium and I went up to the gates. And obviously, this was pre cell phones and all of that kind of stuff. So I had no idea where they were. We had not prearranged where we were going to meet or anything, and could not find them. And I almost left, but then I thought I really didn't want to go home. My home life was not good, and I'd already gone to the trouble of parking and walking to the gate. So I just said, I'll just go in. Maybe I'll run into somebody. So I went in and I sat by myself, and they had a choir for one of the local churches, I think, participating, and the guest singer was Larnell Harris. And I'd never heard of him. I had no idea at that time who he was. And the featured speaker before Dr. Graham was Pete Maravich, Pistol Pete.
Pistol Pete.
Pistol Pete. And if you've never read his book, the one that his wife, actually his widow, wrote along with his sons, it's amazing. And his testimony, his story. But he started speaking, and I knew who he was, so that was, that was kind of exciting. It's this famous sports person. And his message that night was about how he had everything on the outside. He all that he never wanted the national championship, which is what he really wanted, but he had all the money, all the attention, everything material that you could ask for, that you could want. He had the money to buy it. And he talked about how it wasn't enough. There was something missing, and he got into drugs and alcohol and then drugs, and it just escalated. And his message was just so on point. I felt like there was a spotlight on me sitting up in that stadium as he talked about how he had everything upside down and giving his, life to the Lord. I was getting very uncomfortable. And then Dr. Graham came along and gave his message, and I can't really remember a lot of what he said except for one thing that stood out to me, and I think it was intended for me, was that when you are dead and people are standing around your gravesite talking about you, what are they going to be saying? Are they going to be saying, wow, she really dressed nice, didn't she? You know what kind of car she had? What about that neighborhood she lived in? Wow, what a great employee. And all these kinds of things. And my heart was pierced, just absolutely pierced, because that is what I was living for. Because I had nothing else. It was all external. And so Dr. Graham gave the invitation, and there was no way I was going to get up and walk down in front of everybody and walk out onto that field. But the next thing I know, I am standing up and I'm walking down the aisle and walking out onto that field and just sobbing and just asking Christ to come into my life and help me. And my life did a 180 from that point forward. There were some tough times, because I really liken it to a Saul Paul conversion. I wasn't persecuting Christians, but I certainly was not a fan of them and their hypocrisy that I saw in those kinds of things. But complete change of lifestyle, complete change of focus, of desire. I mean, even some of the people at work were like, what is wrong with her?
Who is this woman? Yeah.
Yes, it really was. I got some names behind my back, Miss Goody Two Shoes and some of that, but and it was a struggle for a little while to work that out, but it changed my life, and I'm so thankful. I'm thankful to this day for those friends that harassed me into going, to the crusade, and for Jesus, for God not giving up on me, because I was 34 years old, and that's kind of unusual. Mm-hmm. Most people come to Christ well before that, and so I'm in one of those lower statistics in terms of people coming to know the Lord in their adult years. But the Lord has been with me through some real struggles in life: the death of my first husband, the loss of a grandson, some other family challenges that I don't think I would have made it very well through those without him.
How do people make it? I really sincerely grieve for those who are not only not connected to Christ, but not connected to a church family.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't say it, but I think there's at least an element of truth. Folks, if you didn't even believe in God, and if there wasn't really a God, church would still be a good idea. People that genuinely care, and people that sacrifice and give of themselves, and it's a good support system. You won't find that at the country club. It's not performance based, and that's what the world has to offer. We like you based on your success in your profession, how many sales you make, or the cars all the things that you were engaged in.
Yeah. So, and that's where that came from. I grew up in a home that was very much performance based, and I was never good enough. It didn't matter. I could bring home 5 A's and a C, and we would talk about that C until the cows came home, and it was just never good enough. I was compared to other of my friends. Why can't you be like Beth, or why can't you be like whoever? And I just never had that affirmation. And so I went looking for love in all the wrong places, as the old country song says. And so I was almost programmed to just constantly seek approval.
Hmm.
And because of that, I had that drive to just continue to achieve and collect to get that approval. And at work, that's where I felt important at work.
And we're going to need to move on to your book here in a minute, but I'm curious. You literally grew up attending church,
Hmm.
and it just never connected the whole. I mean, really?
I actually did answer an altar call when I was 15, but I look back and I think it was just an emotional religious experience, for lack of a better
Hmm.
term, because I had no real discipleship or examples to help me with that walk. So I just slipped right back into
Wow.
normal life.
Well,
But
would
God
you?
had a plan.
Well, and he is patient, and I could testify
Yes.
similarly. But there comes a point that the clock runs out. Um, you have written two books, and I don't know which order you wanted to speak about them, but you just start speaking, and I will adjust the title on the screen
Okay.
appropriately.
Well, go
Okay.
ahead and change it. Go ahead and change it to the other book.
What if? Okay.
What if? What if?
What
Um,
if?
a friend of mine and fellow author told me a number of years ago, because I was struggling to get the book written. I kept writing and then I would just get stuck. And she said, well, write what you know. Well, I kind of took that literally, not realizing at that time that she didn't really mean that literally, but I took it literally and started writing um, what I knew. And both of my books are, I don't want to call them autobiographical, but there's a lot of my personal experiences that are wrapped up in both of these stories, even though they're completely different stories. I even had my best friend, who's also was my college roommate, was one of my beta readers, and she actually called me, and I could tell she was upset. She said, I hate to even ask you this, but this was about an incident in one of the characters' lives. And she said, did that really happen to you? And I said, no, it did not. But she was very upset to think that I might have gone through this situation and she didn't know about it, because there's not
Mm.
much about me she doesn't know. So people that know me very well and that have known me for a long time can parse through the stories and figure out what's true and what's not true. But what if is what they call magical realism, is the genre. And the main character is discontent in her second marriage. She's widowed, and just some things happening that are upsetting her apple cart. She's a bit of a control freak, and if everybody would just listen to her, then things would just work out better. And she gets this thing in her head that if her first husband had not died, what if Jack had not died? She just thinks that things would have been better, that her daughter wouldn't have made decisions that she made, and just some things. And so there's a little bit of a time shift, alternate universe thing that happens that gives her the chance to see what if. And so that's all I'll say about that, except that we should not spend too much time living in the past. It's okay to visit once in a while, but don't land there.
Kind of like the rear view mirror of your car. Yeah.
Yeah. And the seed planted, that was a really strange one. I came up with this character name of Juju, and I just got that stuck in my head that I wanted to write a book with a character named Juju in it. They asked me to explain that. I have no explanation for it. I know. And then I had to come up with something that Juju could be a nickname for, and I came up with Julia. But anyway, this story is told in flashbacks, and it covers from 1949 to present day. And it's told from the main character's point of view as she goes back to her childhood. And she had a very unhappy childhood, was emotionally abused, but she had a godly grandmother who lived across the highway, and there was definitely a seed planted by her godly grandmother. Uh, it looked very, very dire for a while, but her upbringing caused her to make some very poor choices in life that led to some devastating occurrences. But she's had to come full circle, and it takes from the seed planted, and that's from the passage in Matthew about the sower and the different soil.
Well, Kat,
And we receive the soil, or let it blow away, or ignore it, or whatever.
the if people that didn't know you read the book and someone asked, tell me about Kat FitzGerald, they would say, oh yeah, Kat FitzGerald, she's the woman that, how would you like the rest of that sentence to be?
Oh, wow. It's funny because my husband and I talk about our epitaphs, so to speak, at times, and about writing obituaries and things like that. And I basically have said, if I go first, just tell people that I love my family and I love Jesus, and that's enough. That's all I need for people to know.
Kat, we can tell that Jesus, is on the throne of your heart. When people read these two books, are they going to feel that they're reading a religious book, or?
No, and I was really pleased that a couple of people told me that they liked it because, well, both of them, the books are not preachy at all, and there's definitely a Christian undercurrent, if you want to call it that. The characters pray, but their prayers don't go on for 3 pages. But these are people that have faith, but they have faith that they have not attended to, and because if you don't maintain that walk with Christ, it's like anything else. You have to focus on it. You have to be intentional about it. And in both of these stories, the main characters let the worries of the world creep in and choke out the truth, and they just slid further and further away from the Lord. And that's just never good. That's just never a good thing. But both of these stories are also stories of repentance and redemption and restoration, so that you can take some devastating consequences, devastating choices, but as long as you draw breath, God is there waiting for you with open arms to welcome you home. And He did that for these characters, which are fictional, but He did it for me. And I'm real. I'm not fictional. He was patient, and He waited for me, and my story is one of restoration.
Amen. Well, Kathy, thank you so much, for sharing not only your books, but your walk with Christ. And we hope that God continues to rule in your heart the way He has. And stick around and let us know what's coming up, because authors tend to keep going,
I am working right now. I'm about halfway through a sequel to What If.
See, I knew it.
It's going to be
didn't know
called If Only.
If Only. All right. Well, folks, there's your teaser. Kat, thanks for sharing with us. Come visit our chat room. I'm sure some things were said about you you'd love to see. So appreciate you sharing.
Good.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you
right.
so very much.
Kat FitzGerald. Oh, what in the world now? What? We have new software, folks, and I'm going to go ahead and adjust this as we speak. And there, see? Nothing to it. Hey, we went a little long because JD is as I mentioned earlier, not feeling well, but Doug Carter will be stepping in JD's place tonight. He'll be here in just a few moments. And I got to do a couple things while he gets ready to come in. Before I leave, I challenge you to ask yourself these two questions and answer yourself, honestly. What is the boldest thing that you've ever done for Jesus Christ? And the second question, when was that? I hope none of us will be satisfied with either answer.